I'm going to try to take you through some installation of the Borgeson power steering unit for my 66 Mustang. This is formerly a 6-cylinder that's going into a V8 conversion. So probably a common thing nowadays, since V8s are all high dollar and the 6-cylinders still can be affordably acquired. Some things that I've already done with this is installed a late model Mustang brakes. This is from the S197 GT Mustang, so bigger than the factory original, and those adapters are just there temporarily because I had a different set of wheels that I was moving the car around with. I've also gone with the standard V8 spring, but I cut a quarter of a coil off as a recommendation for finding out the height before I take off too much material. That's a new apron of the concourse quality, so it doesn't have all the wrinkles in it that you'll get from the versions that have been produced for many years from Taiwan or China. And this is a much thicker metal. And it also comes with the bracket for the splash guards for the front fender. And along with that, I've replaced the radiator support. Yeah, lots of welding involved, and this has been in an accident, so I have quite a bit of more work to do here. And it caused the front to be diamond just a little bit, corner to corner, from this end to the other body point right there. So I used some tie straps and pulled it back into place before I welded these lower cross members. So I will be removing and documenting the upgrade to the Borgeson power steering from this previous manual 6-cylinder steering. I haven't seen enough information on YouTube, so I'm going to go ahead and post this up. I will also obviously have power disc brake set up front and rear. As you may have seen, I've already power disc brakes on the rear. This is Explorer rear end. That'll be a different video where I have to shorten the driver's side, which I believe is this side here, and then it'll be about a ½ inch to an inch narrower than the original rear in this Mustang. Those are some nasty, overly wide tires and wheels in the back. I need to tuck everything in. So I'll take you through the power steering upgrade on this video. We'll begin in the car with taking the steering wheel off. And I chose to make this video because while others have shown the installation of the Borgeson unit, it was involving a later model, not a 66, and also with a different type of a steering column. I'm trying to keep things original on this one for a while. Okay, I thought I would take you through a few tools. This has been an invaluable tool. Battery power impact wrench. Even with the adapters, smaller ones, I find it so useful. It's one of the best tools I ever got as a Christmas present. Of course, a nice complete socket set and other tools there. This is the Borgeson power steering unit, and this is how it comes boxed. The box was broken even as it was delivered, but nothing seemed to be missing. We will go through all the parts. The main power steering unit is in there. And there's the hoses that I hope will work with my 5.0 1993 Mustang engine power steering pump, but I will let you know that in the future. There's a little steering puller. I buy tools from Harbor Freight when I can, when they're not critical. This, on the other hand, is a rented tool from AutoZone, where you get your money back. You don't even have to buy the tool. So let's go on to removing the steering wheel. Well, I got to tell you, this steering wheel position is terrible. It's much too close to the driver. That's how they used to be. You know, yeah, I'm getting a little bit of a belly, but this is just too close for me. It is a bit of a deeper dish sort of steering wheel, but I'm going to try to see if I can move it about an inch forward in this installation process, and I'll go around figuring that out. So now this steering wheel has to come off. If I'm not mistaken, this turns up, and it came off. Well, I don't know if that meant it wasn't supposed to come off that way, or if these pieces were just weakly held in place. Maybe I should have pushed it down first. Well, I'm not going to be reusing this as far as I can tell. I have some new Mustang seats, and I'll probably get a new Mustang steering wheel. So now off with the nut. Now sometimes I'm not going to be able to video what I'm showing you, but this one shouldn't be too bad. It's a single nut. Appears to be a 15/16 inch, and I need an extension. With this extension, I clear the battery from my impact wrench. Well, that came off easy. Might have been removed before. Well, let's see how this comes off. If I can get it just by muscling it. Nope, I'm gonna need a bullet. Well, the holes are a little too close to fit the bolts from this kit, from this puller, into the steering wheel, so I have to grind away a little bit from the insides of these spaces. And by the way, you watch Power Nation and other car shows on TV, and they're always using these die grinders, but they never tell you where to get them. This is an amazing set. They are actual 1/4 inch shank. They're not 6mm, which is too small. It's like $54, $55 or something on Amazon. Astro Pneumatic Tool Company, number 2181. And it comes with all of these, and they're virtually indestructible. I've used these on granite, and you can see there's no missing teeth. They're just perfect. Amazing, amazing tool. So I'm going to grind this out right now, but I'm not going to videotape that. Need both hands. So I spent literally 3 minutes just cleaning up these insides. That should be enough, because this is a rough casting. And look how beautiful that comes out, smooth. With those die grinders. Let's give it a try. Yeah, it seems like that's all it took. Now I'm able to tighten these screws in. So I wanted to show how badly clocked this steering wheel was before I pull it. There's the mark on the shaft right there at the end of my finger. And there's the mark on the steering wheel. How off that is. And don't forget to use your button on your puller so it doesn't ruin the shaft. Well, I'm not going to use this shaft, but why destroy things on the way like the steering wheel I did? This is going to take no effort at all to come free. There it is. Where we go next? I'm going to unscrew this turn signal stock. Don't want to break it. So this spring comes off next, and can't tell if there's a C-clip or something in there holding this in place. I'll have to examine that closer. I think it's just this retainer with these screws, and then I am going to have to remove the column, but the shaft will stay in the power steering unit and come out together. The shaft will remain with the steering unit under the front of the car, and then the column will have to come off. It occurred to me I am going to keep using this because I'm using the same old column. Just flip the turn signal switch to get to the screws and remove them, and then these nuts here will be next. Okay, now the little retainer comes out. Let's see if that whole assembly lifts out of there now. Helping it along in here. This is connected by a wire, I'm sure. Okay, so I pulled on the wire gently. Got this out of the way. There does seem to be some sort of retainer in there. And then these nuts all around. Well, it turns out that pried out quite easily. I just used a screwdriver in there and pushed it out. I can see these screws are holding the collar part at the top, but I think I need to make some measurements before I remove that. So that appears to be at 11 1/8. Maybe a touch more. Unscrewed those screws here. The collar just fell away. Now I'm going to take off these nuts. If you ever wondered if you're going to use your 11mm socket, I think it's close enough to 7/16 that it worked beautifully taking these off. And there goes the top, releasing the steering shaft. Don't lose your little bolts from behind. Don't let them fall down in the shaft. These come out from the back. Where the wire feeds in, you might want to assist pushing it in a little more to get it out far enough to remove the top of the column collar. And the funny thing is, this is really tensioned against the column from the steering. Now a couple of bolts underneath the column collar will be removed right there. And the collar comes off. The column is loose. The support above it is a little bit loose. I think we need to work outside now. In order to remove the clutch pedal linkage, if I have some more room, I need to remove these couple of large Phillips head screws. And this is a real handy tool to have right here. It's a number 3 Phillips head, and it comes in real handy if you do brakes on cars, taking off the rotors, retaining screws, because this will help break them free, especially on an impact wrench, or rusty bolts, rusty screws. Get you one of these. Yeah, no doing that one by hand. Ooh. Now this clip for the clutch pedal. slid up this rubber seal. And now, underneath this insulator, which doesn't seem to have a slit in it, I have to get it some screws underneath. Well, I noticed that the column was not actually being retained. It was more of a trim ring under here, so we're going to pry this back and see if the column goes inside the car. Yeah, it looks to be moving. There it is. So I should be able to lift it out from the inside. I noticed there's this spacer that was above the column here, in between this bracket and the column itself. And it's shaped to secure the column better. Now I have to disconnect the wire that come out of the column. From all these little connectors that are under the dash. So it looks to be one main connector right there. It needs to be disconnected. And one additional connector. So there's two of them. This first one came out without much difficulty. Those connectors are off pretty much just by pulling on them. There's little pins that you could squeeze from the sides on the other end, but they don't have much flexibility, being 50 years old. So now the column and wiring slips off. Looks like the seal needs to be past the dash. And there it is. All removed. And this is what's going to need to be shortened at this end. So here's the clutch pedal I disconnected earlier. I guess I might as well tear that rubber up because I don't need it anymore. I'm going to end up with the hydraulic clutch after. There we go. And this will be unsupported when I unbolt these bolts on this side, because they screw right into the housing. Look like they're about 5/8. So if you're wondering, this is the fuel line, and there's still fuel in the tank, which is why I have this raised up over the height of the gas tank. And I just put a little pan underneath in case that starts slipping out. Okay, remove the clips. They usually break off, being 50 years old. This is also 5/8 for the both. There will be only one. Okay, that's smaller than 5/8. This one was 5/8. There are two tie rod connections for a 6-cylinder, one for 8-cylinder. So that looks smaller. Let's see, probably a 9/16. Yep. And now the tie rod removers. In my application, I had already disconnected the tie rods that go to the steering. This is only needing to be removed for replacement, so the whole assembly will come off together. I'm going to loosen this off of the idler and then remove the pitman arm. Because the whole assembly is coming out, there's only two nuts I need to remove. One of them is this from the idler arm. I don't know if this is going to be reused exactly the same, or if I had something new for the V8 at this time. And the pitman arm, just so I can get the steering mechanism out. I use that to line it up again after I loosened it prematurely. I had to put the bolts back in to be able to get that pitman arm bolt off. Fortunately, this nut was not very tight because I don't have that size. It's about 1 1/8 or so, about that. This worked fine. Just hit it once with a little bit larger hammer and it loosened up. Now on the other side, I can't remove that nut because of the nut that's in the frame holding the idler arm assembly. So that middle nut in your view needs to come out of the frame. I believe this is the smaller of the two sizes of the pitman arm and tie rod puller that I borrowed from AutoZone. There's part number 27022. So now I just need to get a wrench on this thing. It's already going easy. There it is. Slides on from over here like that. I hammered on this box wrench. It's a little bit of a snug fit because it's a 14 fitting on a 9/16 nut. And then I should be able to loosen it from the outside. Now let's see how it goes. Fell off, but I think it's out. Yep. Okay, time to take this sucker off. If there's a red tint, it's because I have my old Verizon Easy Up shading me here now. It's getting too hot in the California sun. Seems to be wanting to slip off that side. Let's try a hammer. That's it. That's why they make this have a rounded head. And this is the old 6-cylinder linkage. Okay, now the last two bolts for the original steering. And there it is. Now, this will go over the motor cross member, but it won't go under with the shaft still installed. If you're doing this with the engine in the car, you would have to cut the shaft somewhere outside the engine bay. There she goes. The old steering unit. Much better to work under a Easy Up. Much cooler. So now we need to clean up some of that grease and then install the new steering box and measure for cuts. Okay, so the clutch, because this was a 4-speed or a 3-speed stick, the clutch Z-bar linkage frame mount needs to be removed. It won't work with the power steering and power brakes that I have planned, so those have to come out, and then I'm going to scrape the grease off and then use lacquer thinner to clean it with. Just want to point out, you want to use a protection for your breathing. That's an old mask, but it'll still work. You don't want to breathe in those vapors, even though it might give you a little buzz or whatever. Destroys your lungs, breathing capacity, and makes you susceptible to illnesses like emphysema. Much worse with some of the chemicals. Lacquer thinner evaporates pretty fast, so it's doesn't hang around like urethane and other types of reducers. But you also want to be very careful with ignition sources. Nothing that could create a spark or have an open flame anywhere nearby, because the proper ratio of air to fuel is 14:1 for an explosion. You may have seen those on some other videos from YouTube. So be careful if you're using any volatile solvents to clean with. I'll probably loosen that fuel line too and move it out of the way some more. The frame is now clean for the most part. Most of the grease is gone. There might be a little film of grease on there. And now it's time to glass bead this steering column. It's rusty as heck. Well, it's coming along. It was way more rusty than it seemed to be. Well, I knew there was going to be some grease mixing with some glass bead, and yeah, popping that bottom out, I used the screwdriver and got underneath the seal, and then wedged it in between like so, underneath, and pried it out. It came out, it was soft enough that it was still able to come out that way. So now we have some cleaning up to do. This is how I'm cleaning out the center bearing. It just seems to, it doesn't seem to have any balls in there, just surface to surface contact. It had sand in it after the sandblasting, so I submerged it in lacquer thinner, rotating it. Seems to be pretty smooth sounding now. Again, don't do this with bare hands. Use gloves, nitrile gloves. Don't dissolve as quickly in lacquer thinner, well, they do get soft over time. Let's turn it over. There's still a little crunchiness to it there. Well, it turns out there are ball bearings in there. You can see them now as I'm using air to help get the rest of the remaining sand out of them. Glass bead. I use the same wash with lacquer thinner and blow out the air, blow out the sand with the air on these spring-loaded contacts for the horn, so now they move easily. A little oil in there will help. Finally, I cleaned out these little spring ball bearings. Same procedure, lacquer thinner on a brush so that it moves easily for the turn cancel switch. Moves nicely. So I was able to get enough loose wire to pull this off. Just pushed it in there, and assembling this to tape it up and paint this end so I could get the whole housing and tube painted. Here's a trick for putting screws into pot metal or sheet metal. Turn it backwards and press. When you hear it like that, then you know you're right in the old thread, and you can tighten that down. That prevents galling the threads and making it so you can't unscrew it afterwards, or stripping it on a piece of sheet metal that doesn't have any strength to hold it again. Just turn backwards till you hear a click with a little pressure on it, and then you go slowly forward. You'll feel it catches the correct thread.